Welcome to Audiogyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Meetu Akali with us on Audiogyan. She's the founder of Studio Momo, an environmentally conscious architecture and design firm specializing in luxury villas and restoration of Indo-Portuguese homes of Goa. Studio Momo is based in Goa, and Meetu is an architect who lived and studied in Oxford before moving to Goa. And today we are here to discuss about Goan architecture and interior design and the world of architecture in general. So thank you, Meetu, for giving us your time, and it's a real pleasure to have you on Audiogyan.
Thank you for having me here, Kedar. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, I've come up with few questions, but to begin with, I would like to ask you, since you studied at Oxford, what was the experience like, and what was the course in particular which helped you navigate in the profession that you are in, and also some bits about your learning experience at Oxford also.
So I was actually very, very lucky to be a part of this very interesting course called MAD. MAD with an extra A is basically an advanced architectural design course which is run by David Green and Andrew Holmes, both very, very well-known architects in the UK. And I was very, very privileged to be working with David Green. And he was my tutor. And this course was a very interesting course because they made us do everything from movie making to book writing to dressing up in different characters to role playing to picking up separate different alter egos as people. And so this course was something that I had never expected an architecture course to be, especially looking at how and the way the construct of an architecture course in India is. I was not expecting this. So it came as a complete surprise, a bit of a shock also when the course started, because it was a very different way of thinking. It was extremely out of the box. And,
you go more lateral.
Yes. And coming from this very structured education system in India, it was difficult in the beginning. The first semester, I just somehow managed to get through. And I think the only point I actually started enjoying the course was when I told myself that I do not want to clear this course. I just want to enjoy it. And when I shifted my mind, I actually started enjoying the course, because then I really became extremely passionate about what they wanted us to do instead of trying to do something to just meet the requirements. It was a very, very interesting process.
Sorry, but wasn't it described in the semesters? Because they typically have like a syllabus, right? What you'll be learning.
Actually not. So David and Andrew. So Andrew Holmes was actually Azhar Hadid's tutor. And David Green was one of the founding members of Audiogyan, which was a very, very unconventional, futuristic thinking group of architects in the 70s who had come up with the Audiogyan, which was a very unconventional journal, architectural journal. So these guys always thought very abstract. And in fact, our curriculum was called Armstrong's Spacesuit. So it wouldn't make sense when you read the curriculum. It's only once you went there. And I still remember the first day we had the first meeting in class, we were asked to dress up as one fictional character from something that inspires you from your country or something which is completely abstract from your country. So I remember I went dressed as Ganesha with a trunk. And the whole day we had to think and behave like the character.
Wow.
So it was really fun, the whole course. I think the biggest learning was that architecture is not about building. And I think that I still feel was the biggest gift in life, because it's never really about the built form anymore. It's beyond it. And also, I think the other big learning was that enjoy the process, enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the now. Don't think about the final product as much. It will shape up So especially if you're passionate about the now, the final product will shape up. So that was a very different way of thinking, and that was really nice. I would highly recommend this course to anybody who's planning to go abroad to study. David is almost 85, 90 now, so I don't know for how long will this go on, but I would highly recommend this.
And what were your learnings, if you reflect back, any particular instance that, like this Ganesha, for example, or any other instance you must have gone through? It is how long, like 2-year, 3-year course?
No, this was actually, normally it's a 2-year course, but we did a crash one, so this was a 1-year program.
So
Very
any
intense.
particular instance out of which you now imbibe that particular thought, and then it reflects back in your work? Because somehow it has to marry, right? Or it's just a learning thing?
No, I still remember halfway through my course, because at one point I was quite dejected because all the international students had really good knowledge of softwares, and which I didn't have coming from my background. And at some point I felt that I would never be able to match up. And this course had a very low ratio of students clearing the course. So at some point I almost gave up and decided to enjoy my time in England instead of finishing this course. So I went online to eBay and I bought myself a tent trailer, which was like a mobile tent. And I went and parked it near the Stonehenge, and I decided to spend the remaining half of the year there, just having fun. So when David called me, he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "David, sorry, I'm 1.5 hours away from Oxford and it's too expensive to drive down, so I don't think I'm going to finish this course." And he just said one thing. He said, "Can I ask you for something?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Just document what you're doing. Look around, see, and document." And I think what that really taught me was to start looking. And that's when I realized that I didn't know how to look. All my life I looked, but I didn't really look. And that was really interesting because I started documenting. I looked at all the other camper vans that were parked around me. I started drawing it. I started making models out of it. And then David asked me to just come and meet him once a month at any pub or the university, whatever I would choose. And every time I met him, he just said, "Look more, look further, look deeper, look harder," and just document it. And at the end of the course, though I didn't follow any of the university curriculum requirement of a final thesis project, I documented the whole thing. I created a pack of 36 tarot cards using my own sketches and drawings, and created a story around it. And I just submitted that along with a little CD. And that was it. They were really happy. The jury was really happy. Everybody was really happy. They liked the work. And I think that taught me something really big for life. One is obviously the art of looking, the art of observing, the art of documenting. But it also taught me that you can always have your own story. You don't have to be a part of someone else's story. You don't have to copy anyone else's story. Just live your own story, and it will pan out beautifully if you're honest in the process. So that was, I think, a very beautiful learning.
Wow. Yeah, that's inspiring. In fact, I've done with few professors also from IDC and NID. I'm sure if they listen, it would be like a learning curve for them as well to explore other means of educating someone. So coming to the topic which I've chosen for today, which is Goan architecture, I want to just ask, what are the unique characteristics which you have observed maybe of Goan architecture and interior? I mean, which all things have shaped its look, its form, its feel, especially in the Goan context? And if you can also elaborate, I know it's slightly a historical question, like a historian's question, but if you have any insights into the character of architecture post-colonial also, pre-colonial also, for Goa.
So Goa, being a part of the Portuguese colony for 4 centuries, has a lot of influence from the Portuguese architecture. 18th century also sees influences of neoclassical Baroque architecture, mainly in the churches. But for Goan homes, it was a very interesting mix of the Portuguese style of architecture combined with local materials, which is the local laterite stone, which is abundantly found in Goa. And what is also very beautiful about Goan architectures, the Indo-Portuguese houses, is they used a lot of vibrant colors using natural dyes and lime washes. So that gives it a very distinct characteristic all over Goa.
It's somewhat like Thrissur also. Thrissur has also a lot of vibrant colors.
Yes. So all these natural indigos and are beautiful shades which one would normally not think of using, but they were beautifully used. And it blends in very well with the nature there, with the landscape. It doesn't stand out as too stark. In fact, it blends in very beautifully. All the yellows and blues and
But
greens.
is it because a lot of them are of the similar pattern? Because like suppose there's a grey landscape and in which one house is yellow, then it will stand out. But since it's multicolored, it just gels naturally there.
And I think, to be honest, the background, which is all green in Goa, at least as of now, it's still very green. I think it works as a very good base palette for all the colorful, vibrant houses. So I think it goes in well together. But before that, before the 15th century, I think Goa had mainly mud houses, where not much use of color, very chromatic rather. And but these were also beautiful houses. They were simple, very modest, as the Indo-Portuguese are very, very elaborate homes. They talk about the grandeur of the Portuguese era. Before that, the Goan homes were very simple, were mainly Hindu, with mud houses with a small tulsi outside and thatched roof. Goa has always had sloping roof because of the abundant monsoon that we have. And the mud houses worked very well with the heat in the summertime. So it would help keep the house cooler on the inside. Lime plaster was always used. So I think it was a very modest landscape before the Portuguese time in Goa.
Okay. And now that we look at that landscape, are there any peculiar characteristics which establish... So if you put that house in some other place, say a Belgaon, will it still look like a Goan architecture? And if it does, then what are the characteristics?
So Goan architecture has very, very strong elements, especially a typical Indo-Portuguese house. For example, the terracotta tile roof, the sloping roof, the color of the exterior, small elements like the balcao, so typical covered veranda, seat, a built-in seat, every Goan house. So it was a part of the social construct at that time that in the evenings, the members of the house would sit outside and interact with the people on the street and with their neighbors. And it was a very social lifestyle. So it speaks of that lifestyle. And so these are very typical elements which are not found anywhere else. So I think, it would definitely stand out if you placed it anywhere else.
Yeah. I've been to some parts of Konkan and you can see a similar architecture where you have a like outside the Wada, you have a small sitting area where the family sits together and has like a very warm conversation to have, like a nice intimate space there is. With Studio Momo, I believe it's inspired by Wabi Sabi Philosophy, which obviously I read from your website. But is it because Goa is a sea destination where anyways time wears out things like really quick? Again, as per my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So was Wabi Sabi like a conscious effort? Or is it because you like that form? Or is it because the destination demands it? Or is there any cultural context to it?
So Wabi Sabi is a Buddhist philosophy which talks about beauty, appreciating beauty in imperfection. It talks about how things in nature have a cycle of growth and decay and erosion, and it teaches you to embrace things for what they are. Now, when I look at the Wabi Sabi way of life or Wabi Sabi way of architecture, it's got a certain, there's a set style to it. But before I had discovered Wabi Sabi, which happened gradually, I knew that I had a certain liking for that kind of design sensibility, those kind of materials, that kind of texture. Wabi Sabi is very earthy. And it was something that I always connected to without knowing the philosophy. So it sort of all came in together at the same time when I came across Wabi Sabi, but at the same time, the decision to move from England back to Goa was completely mine, keeping in mind that I wanted to be based somewhere very close to nature. So all of it fell together at the same time, subconsciously. It wasn't a very conscious move. And obviously, when one started designing, because our practice did start somewhere in Goa, it was a very conscious decision to stay true to the environment. Goa has beautiful trees. There's so much that you can learn from nature. So I think somewhere it just happened very subconsciously when one is surrounded by a certain kind of landscape and you're absorbing from like a sponge from things around you, and also observing nature which you're surrounded with, unlike in the cities, you do somewhere get inspired. So when we started designing, it was a very conscious effort not to cut trees, to create spaces which were complementing nature, inside outside kind of spaces where you do bring nature within your house, you work with it, and then obviously it was a very conscious thought to the kind of materials you use, and we always wanted to be very environmentally conscious. So the minute you start working with natural materials like stone and wood, nature always follows Wabi Sabi. Nature has a cycle. Nature will erode. Nature will age. Nature will weather. So all of that happens automatically when you work with natural materials. So it sort of came together. And of course, with learning, since we also as a firm were trying to be very environmentally conscious with the choice of materials we used and what we did, even in, of course, in architecture, but also in interiors. And we started working a lot with upcycling furniture because we didn't want to use fresh wood. We didn't want to cut more trees. So we started working a lot with upcycling antiques and maybe even junk. And but you also realize when you look at these old pieces that there's something so beautiful. I still remember there's a piece that I'd found, a very, very old panel which we used in one of our projects, Villa Velde, in the living room. It was a panel which was lying behind a lot of junk in a small shop in Gujarat. And I still remember, I thought it was extremely beautiful. And the guy who was trying to sell it to me, he just couldn't understand what was so beautiful about it. He didn't know why I would want to buy it and bring it all the way to Goa. But when we did it up, when we cleaned it, when we just waxed it, put it up in a beautiful setting, everyone wanted it. So I think it's just being able to appreciate things for what they are and to be able to see the beauty. So it just happened very subconsciously. It developed over time very subconsciously. I've changed so much as a person, also in my personal thought processes. Choice of fabrics, of what I like to wear, to what I like to eat, to where I like to shop from, have all these choices that become very conscious. So I think the whole Wabi Sabi thing is happening on many levels, not just design.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because then it also reflects the kind of passion you put into your thing. Because personally, even I'm going route like a minimalistic route style, so it actually lands up where you shop and what you shop, and then how long is it going to last, so that you don't have to buy it again. So on the same lines, what I've seen, at least on the website and few of the articles online, the houses which you have designed, both interior and exterior, yes, they have antique, but they still look very polished and like posh, if I may call that. So if you have any particular case study or any of your learnings from any of the site, say like a Villa Corao, right? So any particular demand or particular request from the client that I want this look, and it goes against the Wabi Sabi style. So not against, but yeah, you have to convince or whatever, like that particular
A
balance.
lot
Any
of that
case study?
happened, especially in the beginning, before we had a set style that was developed. Now it's much easier because clients have seen what we do, they like what we do, and hence they come to us. But in the beginning, to convince a client who's used to Italian marble to go for the simplest natural stone which is available in the vicinity was a bit of a challenge, but also it was a learning that we had to go through together as designer and clients. And to be honest, we've been very, very lucky with clients, and we've always had clients who've trusted in us, who've believed in the passion and believed in the design principles of wanting to keep it more local and wanting to keep it more environmentally friendly. So they've actually always encouraged us. So we've been very lucky in that sense. Yes, I think we've always been very lucky, to be honest. When I think about it, all our clients, even till to date, we've never had someone who said no to something. They've always said, let's try it. And they've helped us push ourselves. So that's been very good, actually. But obviously, even for us, since we were learning and it was someone else's money at stake, so we had to be careful of what we were proposing. So we took baby steps, even to use stone, normal local stone as flooring as opposed to all the fancy materials which were available in the store. In 8 years of practice, I have not visited a single showroom, any interior design or not, other than I think sanitary fittings and electrical switchboards. That also we've actually tried to create in-house, the switchboards at least. We don't normally pick up things off the shelf as much as possible. Even when it comes to flooring, we like to design our own custom design and all of that. So, and also it's been a learning. So everything has been a learning. Even our, we design everything from our furniture to our upholstery to our cushion covers, everything in-house. And of course, there's a lot of detailing that goes into it, but our clients also enjoy it because it becomes something very unique for them to.
But how do you communicate the value of doing such work? Because it's easy to take off from the shelf and just put it there, right? So, what the kind of detailing you guys try and achieve? How do you communicate that it has some value? Because it's very difficult to get clients who understand it automatically, right?
Actually not. We've had clients who have always appreciated, because for example, if you tell somebody that, listen, this is available off the shelf, but I would rather create it using a natural fabric, maybe a hemp fabric, and give you something which is more meaningful and more environmental friendly, better for you, better for the environment. They've all been open to it. Of course, they'd like to see the colors and what it would look like and how will it all go together, but they've been open to it. So, in fact, we've been lucky because also we've been in Goa, where most of the houses we've designed have been second homes. So that's where they're also happy to experiment and happy to explore with us.
Yeah. And have some spending power as well.
True.
Yeah. So I want to actually ask you on further, because this is the question which I'm dealing with currently, that I have a person who's helping me with the interiors of my home, and a lot of furniture I've either got it from Behram Bagh, which is like a teak, reclaimed teak and natural wood, but there are certain pieces which I want to design on my own, right? Like the bookshelf I wanted. Now my interior person is saying that you can go with ply, or you can go with a good pine wood or like a solid rubber wood, and have like a teak finish veneer on it, right? Now eventually it will look the same, but it won't feel the same. I am not able to comprehend myself what does that feel, and I'm not able to communicate that to the person as well. So what goes in actually selecting those natural materials? What is different? Because you can get a look-alike which has a longer shelf life because they're artificially made. So what are the dynamics there?
So it also depends on what you believe in, I would say. I work a lot with reclaimed wood, and there are like plenty of places where you can find old wood, which is obviously you have to work around the sizes. It will not be to what you want. You will have to work around. So you'll have to work backwards from what you find. So sometimes you can find an old piece, modify it to your needs. Sometimes you can just design based on what you find.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So I think you slightly have to rewire that thought process where we are just used to, things just being available as you imagine it to be. This is slightly more the other way around, where you first see what's available and then you tweak your design to that. But once you start doing it, it becomes very interesting.
But is it compromising?
I would say challenging, yes. Compromising, no.
No, compromising in the sense, I want 3 shelves, but I found a wood which is just going to cut and maybe make only 2 shelves. So am I living with that adjustment? Or
So it depends on what you believe is adjustment. The way I would say it is, I would say, okay, I got 2 shelves in wood. I'll do 2 shelves in wood, and maybe I'll do the 3rd shelf in stone or metal. And that will make my bookshelf look really different and unique. So in my head, I can already imagine 2 shelves in teak and my bottom shelf in brass or copper. And that will look beautiful.
Oh, yeah, this is one interesting take which I'll have. Well, I would like to conclude with 2 last questions. One is about you have also designed and made few eco-friendly products, right? So can you tell us more about it? Like why eco-friendly? As in, why is obvious, but what made you think about making products as opposed to just being sort of a service agency?
So when you try and look at non-toxic products in the market, at least when we started our practice, there weren't many. When it came to polishes and paints, to be honest, you can't even find a non-toxic shampoo in the market. So it was about then going back to your grandma's recipe of using amla, rita, shikakai for your hair. The same thought process followed, so we couldn't find something. When we had started our practice, one of our painters was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I did think of it at that time, and there was a lot of toxic, especially with polishing and Duco and all of that. There were a lot of fumes. I still remember going onto a site and smelling all that, and it would just seem toxic, even if one didn't know the composition. And in India, nobody uses gas mask, and people are not very careful. And we tried getting them masks and stuff, and it was too hot for them to wear it. And when he was diagnosed with lung cancer, it took a hit on me, and we said, okay, let's try and find products in the market. And we couldn't find something in the Indian market. Maybe in the international market, yes, there were a lot of beautiful linseed, beeswax-based products, but not in India. But we also realized that India had all the ingredients to make those products. And in fact, India exported it to many parts of the world. So that's when we started going back to those old recipes and rediscovering. And then we created our own recipes, which are now patented in the UK. But we came up with a hard wax oil, which is for exterior wood. We've come with interior furniture wax, which is again 100% natural. And also wall paints, which are 100% natural. So we have been using this for our own projects, and we have recently got them patented in the UK, and hopefully we'll be able to produce on a larger level.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So Meetu, I have one last question. Obviously, this is more dear to me because actually I'll set some background here. Like, if you compare Apple, it does software and hardware also. Currently, I'm working in Book My Show, which in the live entertainment space, we not only enable discovery or booking on the site, but we also actually handle the ground operations. So it's always better to have like a complete ecosystem under you. So if you can share, and since you also do architecture plus interior, obviously not for all sites, but if few of the sites where you have done through and through. So what were the learnings there if you control the entire ecosystem?
So actually we do.
And would you advise going that route, or just because this is slightly generalization? When you get into say only interiors, then you specialize, right? So there are trade-offs on both the ends.
Yes,
so
it depends on how much time you have also, and how much time are you willing to give to a project. We do architecture, interior, and landscaping for all our projects. So in fact, and architecture, interior, furnishing, upholstery, and landscaping. So we get involved to every detail only because we are trying to make each project more and more environmentally conscious, which is difficult to achieve if you're just picking up things off the shelf. So it sort of has become, we're obviously collaborating with a lot of people now, people who are like-minded and who are creating like-minded products. And that's happening more and more in India now. But when we started, there were very few people working in this direction. So it became, we were compelled to actually jump into every aspect and experiment and create, because it was very different from what the mainstream was doing at that time. Recently, someone asked me why have we started doing our own landscaping. It's because we do not want to create manicured landscapes which require a lot of watering in the garden. And I don't know how many people actually think about these things, but it really bothers us as a firm. Recently in Goa, the groundwater has been depleting more and more with more and more development, and the wells went dry this year. And it really bothers us to have a garden which is designed to use a water tanker to water it. So now I've started studying about landscaping and about eco-landscaping and how one can use indigenous plants which require less water, and instead of a manicured lawn which requires crazy amount of water on a daily basis and maintenance, ecosystem that can be created where you, and the thing is, when you start working with indigenous plants, you realize that your birds are coming back and your butterflies are coming back. So it's not just helping your own project, it's helping the environment on a larger scale. So we couldn't find someone who had an expertise in this in Goa. So the only way to do it then was to get your local gardener to start studying, reading, and get into it. So yes, I think that's how the whole controlling thing is happening from just the intent to be conscious.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah.
In fact, so we are working a lot with, we're doing something new, which a lot of other people are also doing in Goa, where we're creating swimming pools, because a lot of people still insist on having swimming pools, though it's not the best thing. But we're at least using pools which are naturally filtered. So these pools don't require any filtration system. They don't require any chemicals. They don't require chlorine. They're just filtered using natural plants, which is in a separate compartment. So 1/3 of your pool looks like a lotus pond, but it's actually filtering your entire swimming pool, which looks like any other normal swimming pool. And this water, after we tested it, has turned out to be cleaner than normal drinking water.
Wow.
So there are a lot of these small steps which are taking us in the right direction, but obviously requires involvement. So
from what I gather, it's like the intent here is you're taking the entire spectrum of things as opposed to having more control, which is like a very beautiful insight for me as well.
It's a very holistic approach.
Yeah. And design, we say, if we care, then we go that extra mile to actually fix things. Yeah.
It's just that. I don't know for how long one will have the energy and time to go into so much detail.
Yeah.
But as of now, yes.
Cool. I think this is a good note to end this. If people have to follow your work, follow you, Instagram, any handle?
So they can obviously Google us. We are Studio Momo Goa. And Instagram is studio.momo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Meetu, for giving your time. It was wonderful talking to you. And obviously, I hope the listeners also get some insights and go down the Wabi Sabi route and be more eco-friendly?
I think Wabi Sabi is a great life philosophy to have. So I'll really ask all the listeners to go and check out Wabi Sabi and incorporate it in normal day-to-day life.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, bye.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on Audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.